Salut! Sunt Cristina Oțel, trainer, life design coach și antreprenor și ajut femeile să se elibereze din strâmtoarea vieții care le-a rămas mică și să-și creeze una care să le vină ca turnată. Pauza de Bine e un podcast de life design în care te invit să te întâlnești cu tine, să-ți antrenezi mindset-ul de creștere, să te împrietenești cu emoțiile tale, să-ți amplifici starea de bine și să-ți îmbunătățești obiceiurile. Împreună cu invitații mei, te echipăm cu ideile și instrumentele de care ai nevoie ca să-ți crești încrederea în tine, să-ți transformi viața de la interior spre exterior și să atingi succesul așa cum arată el pentru tine. Salut! N-ai idee cât de tare mă bucur să petrecem pauza asta de bine împreună. Speciale sunt toate, dar azi am bucuria să împărtășesc cu tine o conversație de suflet purtată, în engleză, cu Brianna Wiest, autoarea cărții Tu ești muntele, o carte care a fost foarte bine primită la noi în țară și pentru care am avut din nou șansa să creez semnul de carte la fel ca pentru iernile sufletului de Katherine May. Și înainte de a intra în conversația propriu-zisă, vreau să le mulțumesc prietenilor de la editura Nemira pentru încredere și pentru că m-au pus în legătură cu Brianna ca noi să putem vorbi despre cum să ne uităm la sabotorii noștri nu ca la ceva rău și care ne rănește, ci mai degrabă ca la ceva care ne protejează și ne ajută să ne simțim în siguranță. Am vorbit despre sabotori, așadar, despre intuiție, despre cum învățăm să stăm cu emoțiile noastre pentru a le putea procesa, pentru ca mai apoi să alegem cum răspundem la situațiile, la circumstanțele oamenilor cu care interacționăm în loc să reacționăm pe pilot automat. Pentru mine, conversația cu Brianna intră în topul preferințelor, clar, și sper să îți aducă și ție bucurie, liniște și inspirație. Hello, Brianna. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation, and I'm very grateful to have you in the podcast and to talk about your book and to pick your brains a little about it.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so honored and so happy to be here with you this morning for me, tonight for you, across the globe. It's so special that we're connecting.
It is, right? If anything, with this COVID pandemic, I really realized that there's no limits. When you want to connect with people from anywhere across the world, you can easily do that.
It's so true and so special to be alive at such a time, right?
Yeah. So if you're game, I'd like to jump right in.
I'm game. Let's do it.
Okay. And I'm really curious to find out, because the title of your book is The Mountain Is You, and it gave me the chills when I first read it, because I've, like many of us, I've had all sorts of mountains, to climb. And when you get to the peak, then you notice, you look around and you see, oh, wait, this wasn't the only mountain. There will be others as well. But the view from the top is nice either way. So I'm curious, what can you share? What do you feel like sharing about your mountain? And I'd like to understand to what extent your own experience served as an inspiration for this book.
Yes, of course. So you really nailed it when you were saying, throughout life, we have many different mountains. Some are big, some are small. For me, the moment at which I began to write that book was actually when I was kind of confronting multiple mountains at once. And I was kind of looking at everything around me, and really nothing was going the way that I wanted or needed it to. And this was what I call the night that woke me. You get to a level of pain so acute, you have this click moment where you take a step back and start looking around and thinking, okay, there needs to be another way. So I really hope this will resonate with the listeners and the readers when I say that throughout my life, and I would imagine, going forward for the rest of my life, we all face challenges and journeys, just as a matter of fact of being alive and being human. And so throughout my own life, my mountains have been incredible financial issues, an extreme amount of debt and instability. It's been weight. It's been loss of significant relationships again and again. It's been, quite heavier things like sexual assault and situations like that. But I would say that the biggest mountain, probably, that I would attribute to being really the catalyst of the book was and is, I guess, my mental health. So I have learned over the years that people who are creative or somewhat intuitively inclined tend to struggle to make sense of the world and make their way through the world. We overthink things, we misinterpret things, and it can really lead to, mental health conditions where it can get scary. And it had gotten really scary for me a number of times, where I personally had arrived at a place where, the mountain didn't seem worth climbing anymore. And I know that I'm not alone in that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really kind of everything going wrong at once that kind of get me to that.
Lovely.
But that's what really started to wake me up to, okay, there's got to be another way. And then the next kind of train of thought that I had was that if there's so much outside of me I cannot control, and I'm only ever focusing on that, I'm always going to be stuck. I can't even think about, I can't even care about, I can't give any of my headspace or attention or energy to the things I cannot control, because the more that I do that, the more that I empower them. And I had to go back inward. And I think I started by making a list. I think I have it somewhere. I got to find it, of like 100 things I could control. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, you can only focus on these. And you would be absolutely floored, or maybe not. You probably would be not surprised at all to know that when you focus completely on only the things you can control, the ones you can't seem to, it's not that they disappear, but they lose their power. They really
Yes.
do. Their power diminishes and you start to move forward.
And I think it's a way of actually taking your power back.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so I got to a point where I decided I needed to restart. Well, and I've done it a few a few times at this point, but I needed to restart my entire life. And that I think that I really believe that each of us comes to this life with an intention for living it. And there's nobody in the world, not society, not your parents, nobody who knows what that intention is but you. It is something embedded deep in your heart and in your soul. For some people, it is to mother. For some people, it is to write. For some people, it is to travel.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what it is, but only you know what it is. And until you are, pursuing that, the external challenges become mounting, because one of the things I believe very deeply is you cannot fight hard for a life you do not truly want. And it's never going to feel completely at peace, like deep in your soul, until you are doing what you know you came here to do. And so, it's not that things aren't challenging anymore. It's that I have the bandwidth to process them in a way I didn't before, because I know it's worth it, because there's something bigger than me, because
Yes.
there's something I care about more. But actually, wait, I'm sorry, I'm like rambling, but I actually have
No,
a
it's okay.
slight pivot, because I want to add something really, really important to your question that I didn't get to, but it's really important, and I want the listeners to hear this. The other thing that was so vital of what I realized in this process of unwinding my own self-sabotaging behaviors and allowing myself to move toward the things that I truly felt called to do in my life was acknowledging, admitting, and accepting the self sabotaging behaviors that I enjoyed participating in, the ways that I would participate in my own suffering, the ways in which I would get in my own way. And we spend so much of our time and our lives always focused on who and what outside of us is in the way, and not realizing that doing that gives them even more power than they might have, and that the only way around it is to realize, okay, if I'm being completely honest with myself, when I would look at this self-sabotaging behavior, there was something about the behavior that I kind of got off on. I was like, wait, why is this comforting? Why is this soothing? Why does this make me feel safe? Why does this make me feel connected? Why does this make me kind of feel good? But I know it's actually not good for me in the big picture. And that's what truly embarked my journey of realizing that the subconscious behavior was meeting an unconscious need. And that when I met the unconscious need, I kind of freed myself a bit.
Oh, I love how you phrased it. And I totally agree that we do come into this world with a purpose and we know it. We are connected to it or with it. But then in time, we interact with people, family, society, and I feel like our connection with this purpose fades under all of the conditioning and the thoughts that we have about what other people's expectations of us are. And then yes, the challenge becomes to start the deconditioning process, to start spending time with yourself, and to yes, ask yourself how you contributed to the place where you're currently at, but not from a place of judgment, but rather from a place of curiosity and kindness. Okay, so rationally it doesn't make sense. I know this isn't healthy what I'm doing, but there is a secondary gain, there is some payoff.
Yeah, and the way that I've, that self judgment is another block to your healing. It's another block to your progress.
Yes.
I think there's a saying, don't shoot the second arrow. That's not my saying, and I wish I could remember where I read it. But it's like when you're already in a moment of pain, don't then add on to it, the self blame and judgment. And the way that I was able to start to move around that was realizing that I'm not doing this because I hate myself. I'm doing this because I love myself and I want to feel safe. I'm doing this because I'm human and I want to feel connected. I'm doing this because there's a little child inside of me whose needs aren't met. And when you start to look at it like that, you're like, oh, wow, I need to be a parent to the child inside me who's asking for help. And I feel like that helps dissolve a lot of that kind of like, why can't you just get over it? Why can't you just power through? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So then, what are some of the things that we can start to do to begin to view certain behaviors less as self sabotage and more like defense mechanisms, not as much as harm, but rather as protection?
So there's one question that I asked myself over and over and over again as I was getting out of my, very low place in life and moving on. And it was, what about this do I want? What about this circumstance or situation am I attached to? What about this behavior feels good? Until we can identify that, we're not going to be able to let go. So that's the question. What about this do I want? What about this kind of secretly feels good? And so that will lead you to, what need is this meeting? And then when you can name that and you can identify that, then you can start to come up with healthier ways to meet that need. It's not about overriding your needs or ignoring them. We all have needs, and we need to fulfill them. We need to fulfill them in a productive, constructive, healthy way, not in a way that ultimately harms us in the long term, but makes us feel better in the short term.
Oh, so much yes. I totally agree with you. And I feel like it's a process. And, some might say, oh, come on, this is just a question. Like, what difference will it make, really? But I feel like it's a trigger. It's like a catalyst, a self awareness catalyst. You begin to ask this question. And sometimes you will be able to ask the question, and other times you'll be so focused on that self sabotaging pattern that you'll forget. Maybe you can do it in looking back, okay, what happened. But it's a process, and looking at my experiences and looking at the conversations I have with my clients, it's not a linear process, and we need to give ourselves grace and time and patience.
You're absolutely right. It's layers. And you might not even realize how far, your attachments go back, how deep these layers run and how much you have to, and that can be sometimes a frustrating part of the process where, I hear people say this a lot, and I've definitely felt this a lot. Like, I'm like, I've been healing forever. Like, why am I not there yet? How is this coming up again?
Do you feel like we'll ever finish this healing journey in this
Well, it
lifetime?
depends on what you think of as healing. I think of it as getting to a place where you're able to process your emotions, both joy and pain. That, to me, that's what healing is. And so yes, I do believe you can get to a grounded place where you have enough bandwidth to be able to basically move through your life experiences and the challenges they may bring without getting stuck in one or the other. To me, that's what it is to be healed. But I think that to think of healing as, kind of a state we arrive at where those waves never come and we're just kind of in a perma state of peace. I don't know that that's what being human is about. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me, that's probably not what we're here to do. What the whole journey is about. I think we're here to do something, to build and to grow, and that's always going to come with highs and lows. But the trouble we run into is when the lows start to compound upon themselves, and we get traumatized by them. And then we have to dig our way out of these holes. We can't look at the mountaintop. We're trying to dig our way out of the hole from the ground.
Yeah.
So to me, to heal is to be able to keep walking forward. So yes, I do think we can get there.
Keep walking forward. I like it. So then, how do we learn, or what worked for you? How did you learn to sit with the discomfort? As you said, we need to go through. We have the bandwidth to go through and to process whatever comes our way. But how do we learn to sit with the discomfort instead of running away or ignoring the signs, the feelings, and so on?
Okay, so my strategy has been to do what I call practicing the pause. So I practice the pause. This is what I tell everyone in my life to do too.
Okay.
When we're in a moment, we say, okay, pause. So when we have a big reaction, a big emotion, that's actually not the moment at which we're going to like sort through it and get to the other side. That's the moment when we need to take a break, take a pause, come back to some self-care, self-soothe, reground, re-regulate their nervous system. And then when we're out of the episode, the moment, the heat and intensity of the emotion, we can then look at it kind of in a more objective way, and then start to think about it rationally, and then start to organize our feelings from there. But the way that we run away from our problems is, I believe, through reactivity. So we feel something uncomfortable, and then instantly we do something to make that feeling go away. We get reactive. So someone says something that we don't like, we get defensive. That's reactivity. That's push it away, push it away, push it away. We're feeling uncomfortable. We reach for the very familiar coping mechanism. It's a reactivity. And so long as there's no space between what we're feeling and how we're responding to it, there's no opportunity for change. The pause creates the opportunity for change. So we pause, we don't respond, we don't react. We come back down to center, and it can, for me, it would sometimes take, an hour, a day, a night, a week, for the heat of that emotion to pass. That's okay. And I do all kinds of things to regulate my nervous system. Honestly, napping, hot baths, a good warm meal, talking to a friend, going outside, exercise.
Some sunshine.
The sunshine, it's some sunshine, basic things. Really, the brain is complex, the body's quite simple. And so remember that in, the peak of an emotion, we need to get back down to center and not be reactive. The body just wants simple things. It just wants to feel, warm and safe and connected. And so I'll get in the bath. I'll sometimes, I would lay down, I'm saying this publicly. I would lay down in the shower and just let warm water kind of run on my stomach. That was somewhere I would feel a lot of like tension and pain and contraction when I was kind of in an episode. Sleeping, napping, drinking a lot of water. When I've been in, emotional episodes, it's very, very important for me, and I think for probably many people, to really try to find healthy, grounded ways to move through the feeling, and not in that moment to reach for the coping mechanism, because I think that's how you get addicted in some ways. When you are at the low and you reach for something that gives you an extreme high, we gotta don't. We're not trying to go from the low to the high. We're first just trying to get from the low to neutral, and then when we're back at neutral, we can navigate our way back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I feel like when there's no pause, then we react. And I see that reaction as being something that comes from that autopilot. It's something that you just snap. You just do something and you don't even know how
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
doing that something. You start yelling or something. It just happens. And when there is a pause, I feel like we give ourselves the space that we need and the soothing that we need so that we can respond, not react. And when I say respond, I'm talking about an intentional response that we choose. But you gave me an idea, just to make a not necessarily a joke, but to keep the conversation lighthearted. I know what I'm doing after the podcast. I'm going to have a bath.
Yes. Do you like that I knew exactly what it was going to be too?
Yes. I know what I needed from this conversation.
All this time, it was just a bath.
Yeah. I'll just tell my husband, you keep minding the puppy and the kids. I have a different agenda for this evening. So thank you for the inspiration. You said something earlier about intuition, and reading your book, I remember that you talk about distinguishing between intuition and the fear based thoughts. How do we do that? Because I feel like sometimes, intuition, I feel like, is something that if you're not paying attention, you can very easily swipe just over with rational thoughts, and I'm curious, how do you feel it? How do you know when it's intuition? How do you know when it's some defense mechanism and some fear-based thoughts in your head?
Yes. Okay. I love this topic because this is something that took me forever to try to sort through because I would,
But
hear
there's hope, right?
there is hope. Don't worry. I would hear all these messages of trust your intuition. I'd be like, and to me that meant, trust your gut and trust how you feel. But my gut didn't feel good. So, I was like, okay, but wait, but I feel like my gut is telling me that I'm worthless and shouldn't be alive. So is that my intuition or what's going on here? So the way that I began to, kind of sort the two is what I discovered is intuition is quiet and the reactivity is loud. So intuition is when you go into a store, and I recommend, by the way, simple ways to practice strengthening your intuition. Simple, like no consequence ways, because we always, we don't have a strong relationship with our intuition, and then we try to apply it to these like huge, extremely consequential like life choices, right? So start simple. So when you go into a store and you look around, do you ever have that moment where you see like a sweater hanging on the rack, and in that instant, there's a quiet little thing within you that goes, oh, yes, I love that? That's your intuition. Your reactivity is loud. It's over the top. It explains things. It has to justify. And what I also find about intuition is that it's not that it can never tell you things you don't want to hear, but it doesn't do it in such a way that it attacks you. It simply redirects you. So for me, if my intuition ever told me, no, that's not the right way, it would just kind of be a simple, intuitive knowing of, no, not for me. And when it was a reactivity, it would like be attacking toward me, like, oh, you don't deserve that. I was like, that's not intuition. Right. So our intuition is attempting to guide us, and our reactivity is attempting to stop us.
Yeah, as you were sharing this example, I was thinking, I've been working with myself and working towards, reconnecting with that inner child and that true self and whatever you want to call it for a while now. And at one point, I realized, of course, it had to be, mirrored for me from the exterior, that I have a good intuition, that I have good instincts. But I found myself in situations when the intuition would be there. And yes, I can attest to the fact that it was something quiet. And then I look around and I see that no one else is thinking about that. So, of course, I imagine that I must be wrong. If nobody else is saying that thing or isn't, doesn't have the same thoughts or feelings about something, then there must be something wrong with me, clearly. So, I'd best just shut up and keep it to myself.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I would just add that I feel like practicing, whether it's intuition or we want to try other things and experience with other things, I feel like it's important that we do these when we are in a calm state, when there's no danger, and we can build the muscle while we are calm. And then we can use it later when we are triggered by whatever comes our way.
This is extremely important that we can't expect to go into the gym and start to build our muscle with a 100-pound weight. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to start with things where it's like it's okay if you get it wrong. Like it has to be like very easy, non inconsequential things. That's where we start to build intuition. And every time we're able to hear our intuition or make a choice from our heart center, it strengthens. I have noticed this over time that the more I've done it, the more when big things have come up, the clearer and easier it is to move through them. It's not that, it's not sad, or you don't have to grieve at times, or you're still going to process your full range of emotions, but you're going to be able to move through life with your inner compass facing your true north of, this might be hard right now, but I know this is the right choice. And I think we get the most lost when we don't know what the right choice is anymore. And we don't know what the right choice is because we can't hear our intuition, because we have not strengthened the muscle, and it's just complete, it's completely drowned out by the reactivity and the intrusive thoughts.
Yeah. I'm envisioning a volume button right now for intuition, making it louder.
Ooh, wait, that gave me chills. I love that. Ooh, I love that. Okay, yes. Moving that dial up and up and up. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying you back for the bath idea right now. I'm loving this conversation so far. And just looking back, we're like 25 minutes in, and we've been places. We've talked about how we can reframe self-sabotage, and view it through the lens of, hey, this is something, or something in this way of reacting or responding to situations is making me feel good. Yeah, it's not rational, but there's some kind of payoff. We talked about how it's helpful to listen to our intuition and to sit in the discomfort, to start to process, to go through, rather than run away from whatever we're going through. I wonder what else, or what would be maybe a next step, or another practice that we can try to rewrite our story, to take our power back, and to start living that authentic and fulfilling life.
Um, so one thing that I have done for years, and I actually do every morning, is I do a brief guided highest potential future self meditation. And when a lot of self-sabotage work, it's kind of like we're working on the ground level, right? We're working on just kind of like getting out from the ditch, so to say. But then there's another piece to it where it's like, all right, well, when we're walking, we're moving forward back on our feet. We also need a greater vision to tell us which mountain to climb and which way to go. And the way that I've been able to find that is by actively not only visualizing, but connecting with and asking questions to.
From that higher
That's right.
self.
And visual and going into meditation, and you can look it up on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts or meditations, YouTube, whatever. Find one you enjoy. I've done one as well, but if mine doesn't resonate, whichever one does, where you imagine, what not just was my future self look like, but what is my highest potential. And that's an important difference, because sometimes when I do like events, I will have the crowd do this meditation, and I will and while their eyes are closed, I will take them down two paths: their future selves if they stay just as they are right now, and their future selves if they rise to the occasion of their lives and meet the moment, and become embody their potential. That tends to be the most emotional moment of realizing, oh, there, my future is not, it's not really an inevitability. I'm going to shape and mold it by the choices I'm making now. And so, every day I like to reconnect with this vision of who I really believe at my core myself to be. And in meditation, I will ask her questions. And the questions I've asked her was, okay, how did you get from where I am now to where you are? And honestly, the answer will change a lot. But I have made some huge life decisions based on what I've seen, and I've never regretted a single one. They have only ever propelled me forward in the most powerful and miraculous ways. And so, you know, it's about remembering that the greatest guide of all is the one inside of you, and to let your future self be the hero of your life.
Oh, now you gave me the chills. We are exchanging chills and
I
goosebumps.
love it.
So, as you were talking about meditation, I was telling you before we started recording that it's also part of my practice. I'm just on a little break right now, being on puppy duty most of the day. But I Googled your name and meditation, and I think you have multiple meditations. Am I correct? On the Thought Catalog channel. I found them on YouTube. Awesome. I know another thing that I'll do, but probably not today. I will try this. And I loved that distinction between your future self, if you keep on doing what you're basically doing, and what your future could look like if you decide to rise to the challenge and to reach that highest potential expression of self. I love it.
I really do genuinely believe that there are a multitude of timelines in our lives, and that, and a word that I will use to explain this is I call it octaves. So on a piano, it's the same sequence of notes, but what octave you play them on is a different sound, tone, and frequency. And I believe this is true of our lives. And so, you know, the notes of our lives may remain consistent. We're always going to be who we are. We're always going to be from where we are from. Our intention and purpose of life is always going to be that. I believe that there are people we are meant to meet and they're going to stay in our lives. So it's going to be that same sequence of notes, but it's the octave on which we play them that completely changes the experience of it. So it's not about, whether or not we get to the mountaintop, but how we get there and what that journey is like, and whether because getting to the mountaintop, that was one moment, and it's an amazing moment, but it's one moment, and our lives is mostly the climb and the journey and the walking toward it. And so again, when I'm talking about learning how to hold the bandwidth for all of these feelings, being able to move through them and keep going, that's what I mean, to keep dancing with life, to keep singing the song of your soul in a way that makes not just the end goal beautiful, but the whole journey there as well.
And in a way that makes sense to you, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. Which can be challenging, when you think about parents or people disagreeing with your choices, not understanding them. Because when you make changes in your life, it's like a ripple effect. Whether you want it or not, you'll be affecting the people around you, and maybe they are not ready to change with you. And so
Oh, this is
that's,
such a great topic because this is something that actually was a big block for me for a long time. And I think is for a lot of people, what will this person think? How will this person react? This person couldn't possibly understand this decision I'm making. And what I have found is this, and this is what I try to hold on to. When you live in truth, no matter what decision you're making on the outside, but your heart is coming at it from a place of truth, people can feel that, people can sense that, and more people are inspired by that and moved by that than you have any idea. And I've noticed in my own life that when I've made big changes and big shifts in the direction of my truth, it's had a ripple effect on the people around me. Not to climb my mountain, but to go on theirs, to go on their journey, to find their truth. I mean, I've had friends in my life tell me this, like point blank, like when I am at this home, when I'm here with you, it makes me want to find my home. It makes, when I see you doing your thing with your writing, it makes me want to pursue my art. It makes me want to do my music. And I'm like, yes, do it. But you become, by living in your truth,
yeah, I
you don't
love
even realize you're
this.
doing it, and that's kind of the
Mhm.
beauty of it, but you become a way shower. And so I think it's a really beautiful thing to be able to share that and to kind of just hold I imagine it like holding a torch up and being like, this way, guys. And with that said, though, there will always still be people who don't get it, and that's okay. And that's okay, because you know what? They're on their journey, and that is okay. And you don't need to steer their ship. You don't
Yes.
need to change their mind. You just got to stay in your truth and wish them the same truth and happiness that you are going to feel.
I feel like it's so much more, productive, if I'm to be rational, to just be the role model, to go on your journey and be an inspiration without wanting to be an inspiration. You're just, doing your thing, and people see your energy and see how full of life you are and how much joy there is, and it inspires them to go on their journey. Because trying to change other people, at least for me, it didn't really work out back a number of years ago, when I was like, hey, I wonder if I could make this person change. Well, that's a hard no.
That's right. Oh, this is so important because yes, because this is so important. I've struggled with this as well. Number one, we're not supposed to take their growth opportunities from them. We're not supposed to take their life from them. And number two, it's not our job. It's really not our job. And it's understanding that even though, we love them and don't want them to hurt, it's giving them the recognizing and honoring the autonomy and freedom that they have as human beings to make choices for themselves, so we can share how we feel and our perspective, and we be open about that. But then we have to honor their path. And that's a phrase I use all the time too. Sometimes I forget things and then it comes to me, I'm like, oh, I say that all the time. I always say this: honor their path, which is okay. If that is their path, I honor their path.
Wow. I'm thinking now, my wheels are in motion. I'm curious, maybe it wasn't a mountain, maybe it was. What did you learn about yourself in the process of writing this book? Because you've written more books, but I'm curious about what the experience has taught you, what the lessons were for you writing this book. The Mountain Is You.
Okay, so around the time I was writing the book, I had a mentor. And when we would work together, he would say to me, Brianna, let's imagine the greatest, grandest vision for your life. And I would say, I live in Big Sur and I'm an author and I get to spend my life writing, and I would come up with this whole thing, right? And he would say, great, let's take it one step bigger, one step bigger, one step bigger. And he would go, keep going, until eventually I was kind of like gassed. I was like, okay, this has gotten so crazy. And he is vision, right? And he would say, you have still not even begun to touch what is possible within this world and within your life. And he was right. And he was right because I listened to him and I listened to myself. And I don't think it's possible to expand outward in a way in which is not in alignment and true for your soul. But if it is in alignment and it is true for your soul and it is your destiny and it is the intention you set for living your life, more joy, beauty, and peace is possible than you can even fathom. And here's the thing, it because that's why you're so uncomfortable inside. All the years I was spending out of alignment, I lived every day with this like deep, achy, uncomfortable, stomach hurt feeling I can't really even describe, but just a constant mild discomfort of, oh, something isn't right. And, I didn't even realize that there was a way to reinvent my experience of my life where I didn't feel that way. And now that I'm on the other side, I don't feel that way ever. I feel peace. And it's not to say I don't feel sadness when it's time to be sad or, anything like that. I feel my range of emotions, of course. But day to day, moment to moment, at the core of me, I feel calm, centered, and present because I know I am doing what my soul intended to do. That was truly, truly, truly the biggest takeaway of the book for me, which was if I could find a way to get my basic needs met, get out of my own way, I could have a life more beautiful. And I think all of us can, and more aligned than I ever even knew would be possible.
I feel like there's so much wisdom in the soul, and the mind needs to learn to catch up, and to make way.
There's so much wisdom in the soul, and the mind sometimes can't even rationalize it. I was just writing about this like 2 days ago. That's funny. I was just writing about this, which was just in my journal, which was that it's always been the unexplainable that has always led to the most like powerful, beautiful, important things in my life. Like things I couldn't like rationally explain to you, but I felt so deeply and so truly. So I agree.
What else do you do besides meditation and hot baths and journaling? What do you find helps you stay grounded and in touch with yourself, connected to your body?
For me, nature is a really huge part of my life and has been kind of a quiet player in this whole thing, but not really actually, because I think I don't even realize that I do. But like, there's like the mountain that I'm looking out my window at is the one I modeled the one on the cover of the mountain as you as. So it's definitely present. But
How cool is that? I didn't know that.
oh, yes, yes. Oh, I should have mentioned that. So, it's there, if you kind of look, but nature has been my awakening force. And I live out in nature now, and I spend every single day out in nature, on the cliffs, hiking, by the beaches, by the water, by the river. Nature speaks to me in a way that, as we just said, I can't quite explain. And it always
You don't need to.
yeah, no, I don't need to. But even when I didn't live out here, honestly, even when I lived in the city, I would take my car out and I would drive up and I would hike and I would, and I would go alone a lot, because when I was with another person, I would find that that could be fun, but I couldn't hear what was trying to be said to me. I don't know if that makes sense, but when I'm alone in
Yeah,
nature,
totally.
I just have to get a little quiet and a little still. I just have to find the right place. I just have to stop, get a little quiet, get a little still, and then boom, it just starts coming in, coming in, coming in. And so nature reminds me of who I am. I don't know if this is exactly what you're asking, but this is important too. Trying to keep my life as simplistic as possible. I don't know if this is part of it, but this is genuinely my answer. I've always found that the more chaotic things are, the farther and farther away from myself I go. And whenever they've gotten chaotic, it's always come from a place of trying to keep up with everyone and trying to stay on every trend and do the whole thing. And that when I always bring it back to the basics and keep things simple in my home and in my life and in money and everything, I always feel like I'm back to myself.
I love this, and it's you just kind of you set the scene for my next and my final question. I feel like the basics, we overlook them. I'm generalizing, but it's okay. It's just for the sake of the conversation. I feel like we are looking for complicated or complex things. We feel like they will be effective, they will produce results. We overlook the simple things, which I find that if we do the simple things and the small steps on a daily basis, we can go much further than expecting one big gesture or one single big thing to create some sort of magic.
Yes, and I talk about this in the book, and I call it micro shifts. Yes, we always think that we're waiting for the breakthrough, kind of like one moment where everything clicks and
Yeah.
everything is different, but I've never found that to work. What I've found to work is the tiniest, almost honest, genuinely almost undetectable shifts that you can make in any given moment of any given day, that compound upon themselves and actually create these huge, massive waves. And I think the part of the reason why that works so incredibly well is that it doesn't shock the system.
Yes. And it doesn't scare you. You don't go into fight or flight.
Right. You don't get overwhelmed and you don't, you know what I mean? You just gently move yourself in a slightly different direction. It's like thinking about writing a book is overwhelming, but could you write one paragraph today? You're like, oh, yeah, well, of course I could do that. Great. Then do that. And then do that every day. And before you know it, not only will you have a book, but you'll feel more than comfortable writing more than that each day. Like it'll happen faster than you think.
Okay. I want to be respectful of your time. I'm really enjoying myself, and I think you're enjoying yourself as well.
I am.
From what I hear, I'm getting the good vibes. But still, there's one question that I ask towards the end of every episode from each of my guests. And we actually collect all of these evergreen ideas that I'm going to ask you about. And we have this ebook full of wisdom, packed with wisdom from all of 100. And yours will be episode 122, I think. Yes. And so we're making a collection of nuggets of wisdom. And so my question to you would be, what are three evergreen truths? And when I say evergreen truths, I mean those simple, because we've talked about simple but often overlooked ideas that are true today and will continue to be true, as the years go by. So evergreen truths about overcoming our limiting beliefs, climbing our mountains, and living in alignment. Whatever comes up for you here and now.
Okay. Wow. Oh, I love this. I love this. Okay, this is amazing. I'm so honored to be part of this, and I want to see this ebook by the end. because I feel like how incredibly powerful. Okay. Whew.
No pressure.
Now now I'm thinking about it in the book. I'm like, okay, what do I want to say? And I can only say 3. Okay, I'm going to start at the tippy top. Number 1, you came to this life with an intention. That intention is embedded within you and only you. That's number 1. Number 2, you are never going to fight for a life you don't want. It's never going to feel right if it isn't right. And number 3, it is not a matter of whether or not we ever get hurt, but what we are willing to hurt for. So it's not about moving ourselves to an insulated place where we don't experience any discomfort. It's about moving to a place where we are willing to go through the discomfort for something so much bigger, so much greater, so much more important than us. Something that we would be proud to get to the end of our lives and say that we had done.
Well, I must say you rose to the challenge exceptionally. Those were lovely evergreens. I loved them, and I feel like they're simple yet very powerful, and there's a lot of wisdom to unpack there. And I'm just happy, to drop the mic right there and to leave people with these evergreens and to invite them to reflect and to see what resonates with them. Is there something that you wish I had asked? Do you feel like there's something that you need to add to this space? Do you feel like we are okay?
I feel that we're okay, but here's what I would like to end on to anybody listening. What I want you to know is you're not alone, ever. In anything you feel, anything you're facing, anything you're experiencing. And across all of time, all of history, all of the people who have come and gone, everyone experiences, the same emotions, the same range of emotions in a life. But there have probably been, I don't know, thousands, millions of people who have felt the way you feel and have had to face the things you're facing. And this isn't to diminish what you feel in any way, but just to remind you that there are other people in the boat with you, and you can turn to each other and look at the wisdom they have gained from moving through their experiences, and look to each other to get through, and that you don't have to be an island and you don't have to do it yourself. And it really is going to be not just okay, but more okay than you know. It really is.
What a beautiful and peace-inducing idea to end on. Thank you so much for everything you shared and for the time you took.
Thank you so, so, so much. Beautiful conversation.
I really appreciate you. I see you. I value your work. And I'm so happy that I got the chance to sit down with you and have this conversation.
Thank you so, so, so much.
Mulțumesc că ai rămas cu noi până la final și am încredere că îți iei din acest episod exact ce ai tu nevoie. Dacă ai citit cartea, dacă ți-a adus valoare pauza asta de bine, dă-mi un semn în social media, dă episodul mai departe. M-aș bucura să facem schimb de impresii și să știu ce a făcut sens pentru tine, ce a avut sens pentru tine din acest dialog cu Brianna. Până data viitoare, ține minte că și tu îți poți crea o viață pe care să o iubești și pentru asta e nevoie să te dai la o parte din calea ta.